I had been with Ethan for 15 years, yet on the very day of my birthday, he announced that he was going to marry my best friend, Lily. I smiled and wished them happiness, then turned away, determined to destroy him completely. Under the glow of the stage lights, I held a glass of champagne in my hand, swirling it lightly so the golden liquid traced a perfect curve along the rim. Ethan had told me earlier that he had a surprise for me tonight. I deliberately tucked my hair behind my ear, revealing the diamond earrings he had given me last year. He once said that when his company went public, he would replace them with wedding rings. Suddenly, the big screen lit up. Rose petals fluttered down from above. I lowered my head, ready to say the words I do, but when I looked up I saw Ethan kneeling on one knee, not in front of me, but holding up Lily's hand. "Marry me, Lily." 5 words, 5 sharp knives, each one stabbing straight into my heart. The entire hall erupted in cheers and blessings. I took a sip of champagne. The sweetness exploded on my tongue, turning instantly into poison. I raised my glass and walked straight through the crowd toward them. "Congratulations. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to silence the entire ballroom. Ethan's eyes flickered slightly, as though he had just remembered that I was still there. Lily blinked, feigning innocence. "I heard you were going to give us your blessing, right?" I smiled. "Of course. To you two, cheers." I drained my glass in one go. Then, raising my hand, I poured the entire drink over her head. Champagne streamed down her carefully styled curls, soaking into her white dress until she looked like a disheveled bride, messy yet unforgettable. I turned away and casually set the empty glass onto a waiter's tray. Ethan chased after me and pulled me into the emergency exit. The door slammed shut behind us with a loud thud, cutting off all the noise outside. "Stop making a scene, Emily. She's pregnant," he said hoarsely, his tone laced with frustration. I stared at his cuff, still fastened with the platinum cufflinks I had once sewn for him. So that was it. That's what betrayal looked like. I nodded slowly. "Then congratulations. What are you so nervous about?" He clenched his fists, the joints of his fingers turning pale. I stood on tiptoe to straighten his tie, my fingertips brushing against his Adam's apple. "Don't be afraid, Ethan," I said softly. "The game has only just begun." When I returned to my apartment, the first thing I did was tear every photo from the wall, 137 pictures in total, from the days we took photos at street stalls, to those in high-rise offices, from cramped basements to the glittering towers of the business district. The torn scraps fell all over the floor like snow in the night. Barefoot, I stepped on them, feeling the sting of blood oozing from the soles of my feet, but I felt no pain. I opened the drawer and took out an old, yellowed notebook. September 2015, expense, $3,000. Note, my mother's inheritance, startup capital for Ethan. Below it was his signature, elegant, bold strokes like a dragon soaring across the page. I took a picture of it and posted it on Weibo, visible only to a few close friends, with a caption that read, "Debts must be repaid." That's just how the world works. The moment I posted it, my phone vibrated. A message from Ethan appeared on the screen. "Be smart. Come to my office tomorrow. I'll give you 5% of the shares. Consider it hush money." I replied, 5%? Do I look like a beggar to you? He texted back, "Then how much do you want?" "What I want, you could never afford." After sending that, I turned off my phone and pulled out the SIM card. Then I stepped into the bathroom, turned on the water, and let it run hot, so hot that my skin turned red. Through the mist rising from the steam, I saw my 19-year-old self standing beside a tiny 1-meter-wide booth in a crowded night market, helping Ethan sell t-shirts. He counted the small bills and coins, smiling as he said to me, "One day, I'll make you the boss's wife." And now, he really had kept that promise. Only the woman beside him wasn't me. I closed my eyes, letting the scalding water wash away my tears. When I opened them again, all that remained was cold determination. "Ethan, you took 15 years of my youth. I'll make sure your entire fortune is buried with it." After drying off, I put on a black windbreaker. At 2 in the morning, I drove to the Jackson Riverside. The night wind whipped through my hair, fluttering like a flag of vengeance. I opened my phone, created a new note, and started typing line by line. Step 1, ruin Lily completely. Step 2, destroy Ethan's entire fortune. Step 3, Stand by and watch the two of them tear each other apart. I saved the note, locked my screen, and looked up. Across the river, the neon lights flickered and reflected off the water, shimmering like flames. I smiled faintly. The crematorium was ready. Now it was time for the two main characters to step in. The next morning at exactly 9, Ethan's lawyer asked to meet me at a quiet Starbucks. He slid a folder across the table toward me. Inside was a contract gifting me a small apartment in the suburbs. "Miss Shen," he said formally, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses, "Mr. Ethan said that once you sign, both parties will consider this matter closed." I flipped through a few pages and laughed. A 2-bedroom apartment? It's not even worth one of his sports cars. What about the company shares? The lawyer cleared his throat and spoke slowly. "The company is about to go public. Mr. Ethan's position is that this matter no longer concerns you." I pushed the folder back toward him. "Then tell him this. If he wants to buy my silence, he should come here and say it himself." The lawyer hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. I smiled sweetly and added, "If he doesn't show up within 10 minutes, I'll bring a few reporters down to the brand exhibition hall myself." At that very moment, Ethan was hosting a press conference to appoint Lily as the company's new brand director. 8 minutes later, he showed up, wearing sunglasses, with a faint lipstick stain still visible on his collar. "Emily, don't be unreasonable," he said, his voice tight. I raised my phone. The screen showed a live stream already running with over 100,000 viewers. My tone was calm but icy. "Mr. Ethan, your ex-girlfriend helped you build your company from scratch, and now you're trying to send her away with a cheap apartment? Or has your fortune shrunk that fast?" The comment section exploded with messages. "Shameless. He owes her. Justice for Emily." Ethan's face darkened. He grabbed my phone and turned off the stream. "How much do you want?" he hissed. 40% of the shares," I said coldly, "at the original 2014 valuation, transferred to my account within 3 days." "You're dreaming," he snapped. I stood up, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, "Then I'll see you on the trending page. I already have the recording." As I walked away, the sound of a glass shattering behind me echoed through the cafe like the first drumbeat before a battle. That afternoon, I returned to my apartment and took a pair of scissors to every piece of clothing that matched his. One by one, I cut them into shreds, packed them into a transparent bag, snapped a photo, and posted it on the company's internal network with the caption, "A small breakup gift, wishing the company a smooth IPO." The employee chat group instantly exploded. Someone anonymously leaked that Ethan had embezzled his startup funds. The company's stock hadn't even hit the market yet, but his name was already climbing the hot search. I brewed a cup of black tea and sat by the window, watching the sunset melt across the city skyline. A faint smile curved my lips. The first drop of blood has finally fallen. That evening, the doorbell rang. Lily appeared in 7-inch heels, her slightly rounded belly showing beneath a tight dress. "Emily," she said sweetly, "I'm here on behalf of Ethan to deliver your wedding invitation." She handed me a gold-embossed envelope. The ceremony was scheduled for the 1st of next month. I opened it, and inside was an ultrasound photo. The baby was already 3 months old, the first grandson of the Wright family. She smiled gently, like a pure white lotus, but her eyes couldn't hide the smugness beneath. I poured her a cup of warm water and slid it across the table. "A man with low sperm count who can still get a woman pregnant? That's quite a medical miracle." Her fingers trembled, spilling water across the table. What are you talking about?" Without hesitation, I threw a folded document at her. It was Ethan's health report from last year. "Need me to zoom in so you can see it clearly?" Her face went pale, and she instinctively wrapped her arms around her belly. I leaned closer, my voice calm but sharp as a blade. "Something stolen that you can't even keep was never yours to begin with." She shot to her feet, the chair toppling behind her with a loud crash. "You'll regret this, Emily Shen. Just wait." She slammed the door so hard the sound echoed through the entire apartment. I bent down, picked up the wedding invitation that had fallen to the floor, tore it neatly in half, and tossed it straight into the trash. A moment later, my phone began to vibrate. A strange multimedia message arrived on my phone, an amniocentesis appointment form, signed by Ethan's mother, sent by a Miss Yvonne. I felt the corner of my mouth lift. I texted back, This drama just keeps getting better. The next morning, before I'd even fully woken, the doorbell was hammered like a power drill. Ethan's mother burst in with 2 bodyguards. She glittered with gold and jewels but couldn't hide the fury burning inside her. "Miss Shen, you've done something very clever," she snapped, and then she hurled the ultrasound photos straight into my face. The paper cut my lip and a tiny bead of blood welled up immediately. "Madam, please have a seat," she said, but I turned my back and walked calmly into the kitchen and leisurely made a cup of coffee. "If anything happens to Lily's baby," I said, sliding the cup toward her, "I'll make sure she buries it." Coincidence or not, I was also curious to know who the baby's father really was. I handed her a USB drive. On it was last night's surveillance footage showing Lily leaving the building. She slipped on her own and slammed into the decorative shelf in the hallway. Mrs. Reynolds' expression flickered through shock, disbelief, then calculation. "Before the amniocentesis results come in, you'd better keep a close eye on her instead of coming to make trouble with me," I said. The 2 bodyguards started forward, but she raised a hand to stop them. For the first time, her eyes looked at me, as if she was finally seeing who I really was. "One of us said she's demanding 40% of the shares?" one of her men asked. "Yes," she said angrily. "Greedy, she'll choke on it." I smiled. "Madam, I sold my mother's inheritance to save the company back then. The contracts were all finger-marked. Have you forgotten?" I pulled a copy of the contract from the drawer and flicked the edge of the paper with my fingertip. She shrank back and, after a long moment, spat out, "Take care of yourself," and left. The apartment still smelled richly of coffee. I lifted my cup toward the surveillance camera and arched an eyebrow. The second drop of blood had arrived. The next day, while I was still asleep, my phone buzzed. Another strange multimedia message lit the screen. The paternity test results done from Ethan's hair sample and the fetal data from Lily's earlier prenatal check. The result matched exactly what I'd suspected. The baby in Lily's womb was not Ethan's. I didn't post the paper on Weibo. Instead, I opened my Notes app and added one small line to the old note. Let the bullet travel a little further. Wait for the perfect moment. On Monday morning, when the market opened, the Reynolds family stock plunged 7%. The financial front pages highlighted a headline about the founder's private scandal. The IPO deal was suddenly at risk. I sat in a cafe, watching my screen, as reporters swarmed Ethan. The hollowness under his eyes was frightening, but he tried to appear composed and polite. My phone rang, his voice hoarse, barely containing anger. "Emily, delete the recording. I can give you whatever you want," he pleaded. "Answer me plainly." I said, 40% of the shares, at the original valuation, transferred to my account by 8 o'clock tonight. "You're insane, Emily. 40%, what do you want to ruin the whole company? The board will be calling for your head," he warned. I hung up and sent him the signed transfer agreement I'd prepared. By 7:59 p.m., he arrived in a hoodie, eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness. "Fine, sign it," he said, but demanded I post a Weibo correction saying it was all a misunderstanding. I pushed the papers back and added one more clause. Party A voluntarily transfers the shares. Party B shall never issue a correction. He slammed the pen down hard. The cafe glassware trembled with the impact. I checked the clock and said calmly, 30 seconds. He barked and signed. He pressed the pen so hard it tore through the paper, then stormed out and slammed the door behind him, then gathered the contract back up, photographed it, and uploaded it to the company's securities confirmation system right there. 10 minutes later, the notice of share transfer was issued and shot straight to the top. One hot search. Ethan cuts shares to save himself. I switched off my phone and glanced at the sleek black car parked on the corner. The window rolled down and Ms. Yvonne tilted her head, his face beneath the streetlight, cold as a blade. "Congratulations, Miss Shen." The CEO forced a smile and stepped forward. "May I borrow a seat on the board?" he said in a low, gracious voice. I opened my door, and my dress skimmed past the night. The crematorium had officially been lit. Miss Yvonne's car stopped in front of a private club on the riverside. As the elevator doors opened, I saw a woman in a long white dress standing with her back to the wind. The river breeze whipped her skirt into motion. She turned her head, her expression pale as moonlight. It was Hannah Moore, the woman who had silently loved Ethan for 4 years in college. "Hannah," Long time no see, I said, taking her hand. Her fingertips were ice cold. Hannah, the debt of truth you owe me is due today. She handed me a yellowed medical file. 2012, Ethan's accident, emergency transfusion, 600 milliliters. Donor, Tong Tin. I let out a soft laugh. I saved his life, and he repaid that debt by giving his gratitude to Lily, calling it love. Hannah bowed her head and her voice trembled. Back then I didn't dare tell you. I was afraid you and he would get back together. I kept it secret, but fate is ironic. Now that wretched Lily steps forward to take credit. Why didn't you tell me then, and why dare now? I said. She looked up, a crazed light matching mine blazing in her eyes. Let me join you. I closed the file, clinked my glass gently against her juice. Partners, I said. That night I scanned the medical file, emailed the copy to the Reynolds Group's communications department, and CC'd the entire board. The subject line was a single sentence. CEO credited the wrong lifesaver. Is he still fit to captain the ship? At 2 a.m, my phone exploded with 10 missed calls from Ethan. I turned off my phone, calmly showered, and put on a face mask. Before the stock market could open, Reynolds Group was once again atop the hot search. Ethan credited the wrong savior. I laughed into my mask. The third drop of blood had arrived. The next afternoon rain poured like grief. I took a garbage bag down to the lobby and, as I opened the metal gate, ran into Ethan standing outside, soaked through like a drowned dog, his expensive suit clinging to him, droplets running from his hair and washing away the pride that had once filled him. He looked up. Emily, no, this is wrong. It's wrong beyond forgiveness. He dropped to his knees in the rain. Water splashed, wetting my ankles. I opened my black umbrella, bent down, and used it to lift his chin. Ethan, the pavement's cold. Don't ruin your knees. You have a board meeting tomorrow. His voice was hoarse. It's always been you. Give me a chance. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I smiled. Fine. First, pay back the $3,000 my mother left. Calculate it with compound interest at 24% per year. His face drained instantly. You can't be serious. Let me calculate it for you. To cover principal and interest, it's 10,237,000. I smirked. Transfer it by tomorrow. He said he didn't have that much cash. Then sell shares, sell the house, or sell a kidney. I stepped upright, tilted the umbrella so the rain poured directly over his head, and asked, Ethan, didn't you once say love was priceless? Then let me teach you, I said quietly, just how high the price of love really is. I turned and walked away without looking back. As the elevator doors slid shut, flashes from the paparazzi outside flickered like lightning in a storm, their shutters clicking faster than the falling rain. An hour later, Weibo exploded, taking over the top trending spot. Ethan kneels in the rain, begs ex-girlfriend for forgiveness. In the photos, I stood holding a black umbrella, looking down at him, while he knelt in a puddle, gazing up, perfectly framed, like a devotee kneeling before a goddess. The comments were filled with glee. Serves him right. The scumbag finally got what he deserved. I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of warm milk. A message from Miss Yvonne came in. The background full of noise like a heated boardroom. Miss Shen, Ethan just submitted a request to suspend stock trading. I voted against it, as you instructed. I took a sip of milk and replied, Inform the board that I'll present a new proposal at tomorrow's 9:30 meeting. What proposal? She asked. Replacing the CEO. I typed, then hit send. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. The moon hung high, cold and sharp like a freshly honed blade. The crematorium was blazing now. At 6 a.m, the vibration of my phone woke me. The hot search was boiling again with 2 trending topics at the top. Lily falls, baby lost. I tapped to see. Photos showed her being carried into an ambulance, her white dress soaked in blood. Ethan stood beside her, veins bulging on his forehead. As I scrolled down, a new post appeared. Lily, Emily Shen, are you satisfied now? The comment section exploded instantly, flooded with curses. Murderer, heartless woman, give her life back. I calmly opened my laptop, logged into the apartment complex's surveillance system, and clipped a 10-second video. The moment Lily slipped on a banana peel and fell flat on her face, all by herself. Then I posted it from my secondary account with over 100,000 followers, captioned, Wishing Lily a speedy recovery. Next time, watch your step. The video clearly showed her falling while I stood 3 meters away, never even touching her. The internet turned faster than a page in a book. The trending tag immediately flipped to "Lily faked her fall." The actress who staged her own tragedy lost everything, including the baby. Brands rushed to issue termination notices. Comment sections filled with one cold phrase, repeated over and over: "Serves her right." I closed the laptop, stood up, and began doing my makeup. My lips curved faintly. The fourth drop of blood has arrived. At 9 o'clock the next morning, in the Reynolds Group's main conference room, Ethan's mother sat at the head of the table. Her face looked paler than the financial report in front of her. The stock had fallen for 5 consecutive sessions, and the board members were loudly criticizing from all sides. I pushed open the door and tossed a folder onto the table. "Here are the 40% shares Ethan voluntarily transferred to me. They're currently held in escrow under a securities firm." "Emily." Ethan slammed the table and stood. "You promised to help me clarify everything." I raised an eyebrow. "I said I'd consider it." His mother grabbed his arm, her eyes like knives cutting into me. "What will it take for you to save Reynolds Group?" I held up 3 fingers. "First, Ethan resigns as CEO. Second, Lily permanently steps down from the board. And third," I paused and smiled sweetly, "we announce publicly that Ethan and I are engaged to restore investor confidence." The room froze. Ethan's pupils trembled as he glared at me. "You're insane." "That's up to you," I said calmly, sliding the contract back toward him. "Refuse, and just wait for the company to collapse." His mother grabbed my wrist, her voice icy. "Fine. Ethan can marry you, but if you have children, they must carry the Reynolds name." I pulled my hand away and wiped the spot she touched with a wet wipe. "We'll deal with the matter of children later." That night, Ethan cornered me in the underground parking lot. "Emily, do you see me as nothing but a tool? And you were any different?" I shot back. His eyes turned red, then he suddenly laughed. "Fine, I'll marry you. But remember this." He stepped closer, his voice low and bitter. "A marriage certificate isn't a shield, it's a chain." I reached out and brushed the dust off Ethan's shoulder, my tone calm and even. "From tonight on, you'll play your part as the devoted husband who can't have the woman he loves. And if you don't," I lifted my phone, the screen displaying the magnified image of his signed share transfer contract, "I'll make sure you walk away with nothing." The next morning, the front page of Finance Weekly screamed in bold letters, "Reynolds Group founder proposes to his ex-girlfriend. The wedding of the century approaches." In the photo, Ethan knelt on one knee, slipping a 12-carat diamond ring onto my finger, while I smiled shyly for the cameras. The comment section overflowed with excitement. "This is the ultimate reunion of the century. Fate always brings true lovers back together." I folded the newspaper neatly and turned to my assistant. "Book the wedding dress, the most expensive one." She nodded, and I added, "Put it on Ethan's supplementary card." The corner of my lips curled. The 5th drop of blood has arrived. The night before the wedding, I started a live stream titled simply, "The Collapse of the Century." On screen, I wore a wedding gown with a 3-meter train, sparkling like a galaxy of stars. Within minutes, over 1 million people had joined the stream. The chat filled up instantly. "The most beautiful bride on the internet. She's glowing, I could cry." I formed a heart with my fingers and smiled sweetly. "Thank you, everyone. Tonight, I have a very special surprise for you." Just then, the dressing room door burst open. Ethan stormed in, his eyes bloodshot, voice trembling with anger. "Emily, are you insane? The wedding's tomorrow." I raised my phone, smiling coldly. "Relax, Mr. Reynolds. Every emotion deserves a little ceremony. We're just doing it ahead of schedule." Before he could respond, I pressed the switch. The live stream camera feed changed instantly to the wedding hall's giant screen. One by one, videos began to play. The clip of Ethan kneeling in the rain, the footage of Lily's staged fall caught by surveillance, and the high-resolution contract showing Ethan's signature transferring his shares to me. Every file was sharp, clear, and unedited, presented like a cinematic slideshow. The live stream exploded. "This is the collapse of the century. I'm eating this drama up. I could die happy." Ethan lunged toward the equipment, trying to pull the plug, but the stream had already been mirrored and broadcast live on 3 separate platforms. I lifted my gown slightly, stepped onto the stage, and took the microphone. My voice was steady, almost cold. "Ladies and gentlemen, This wedding is cancelled. A man this rotten doesn't deserve to be anyone's husband. As for the shares. Miss Yvonne appeared from backstage, wearing a black suit with a CEO's pin gleaming on her chest. I turned toward the camera. All shares have been officially transferred to the Coal Corporation. Trading will reopen tomorrow morning. Ethan's voice cracked as he shouted, "Emily, you've ruined me." I smiled faintly, my gaze calm and merciless. Congratulations, Ethan. Now you finally understand what it feels like to lose everything. For the finale of the live stream, I leaned closer to the camera, smiling as I said, "Ladies, remember this, staying clear-headed is the greatest luxury of all." The chat exploded. She's legendary, the queen of revenge. I ended the live stream and turned around to find Ethan staring at me, his eyes red with rage. "Ethan," I said slowly, each word deliberate, "the game is over. The crematorium fire has burned out." The same night, while the viral wedding collapse stream was still dominating the internet, the board of directors convened an emergency meeting and voted to remove Ethan as CEO on the spot. When security dragged him out of the hotel, he looked like a skinned fish, eyes wild and red, shouting hoarsely, "Emily Shen, you'll never have a good ending." I lifted my gown slightly and walked out through the back door of the venue. The night wind carried the sweet, almost metallic scent of champagne. As I stepped out of the hallway, a slender hand gripped my wrist, Miss Yvonne. "Miss Shen," she said quietly, "the play is over and the shares are in your hands. What's your next move?" I twisted my wrist free, slipped off the 12-carat diamond ring, and tossed it straight into the trash can. The metallic clang of steel rang loud and harsh. No more playing, next was cleaning up the scene. I took out my phone, opened a folder, and encrypted it. A cold blue light shimmered across my face as I pulled up Ethan's full personal asset ledger. Real estate, trusts, offshore companies, cryptocurrency wallets registered under other names, even the first stock he bought when he was 14, it was all in there. I handed Miss Yvonne a USB drive. 3 hours. I want every account of his frozen. She looked at me and for a moment actually resembled a capitalist more than I did. I smiled. "If you borrow a knife to kill, make sure it's sharp and you pull it out quickly so the blood doesn't splash on you." At 1 a.m, Ethan was carried into the emergency room. The diagnosis was acute psychiatric disorder and mandatory sedation. His phone on the bedside table kept buzzing. Banks, brokers, his personal assistant, alerts popped up one after another showing unusual account activity and trading suspensions. He went mad, ripped off his blanket and ran barefoot to an ATM, shoved in his card. The screen displayed an empty balance with nothing but zeros. He screamed and punched the camera, cracking the glass. Blood smeared across the lens. At the same time, I was at the other end of the city, at a 24-hour automated notary kiosk. I fed the final debt collection contract into the scanner and hit upload. The contract stated the capital, CNY 3,000 thousands, that Ethan received in June 2014 to start his business was in fact my mother Tong Tin's inheritance. Calculated at 24% compound interest per year, the total principal and interest came to CNY 10,237,000. I had the notary take the sole remaining villa registered in his name, Reynolds Manor, to offset the debt. The seal dropped. I had personally buried a tombstone for him. The Reynolds estate that had imprisoned me for 3 years like a canary now changes its name to the Tong family. Holding the notarized certificate, I stepped out into the pale morning. Dawn cut the night sky in two like a knife. I raised my cup to the first ray of sunlight. The coffee was bitter enough. The 6th drop of blood had landed in the account. By 9, the hot searches were exploding again. Ethan wiped clean, assets frozen. Netizens quickly dug up early morning footage of him smashing the ATM, his bloodied hands printed on the glass like a horror movie poster. Comments brimmed with schadenfreude, finally karma. He was living off my poverty, and I didn't deserve it. In one night he had gone from domineering tycoon to a thief. I scrolled through the comments, laughing until my shoulders shook. The doorbell rang. A delivery man handed me a folder, the land use certificate, the title deed for Reynolds Manor, and 12 keys. I signed for them and tossed the key ring into the safe, then told my assistant, "Contact the demolition crew, start dismantling today." The assistant stared. "The whole place?" she asked. I answered sharply and decisively, "The whole place." I'm flattening Reynolds Manor and live streaming the demolition. The teardown live stream was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. In the frame, the massive arm of the excavator rose like a hammer, the judgment of the machinery of justice. I put on sunglasses, sat on the hood of a convertible supercar, and held a megaphone. Everyone, today will destroy the lair of that scumbag. If you donate, I'll engrave your IDs on the machine arm, I announced. The comments surged like a tsunami. Bury his ex too. Carve the scumbag's name on the load-bearing wall. I signaled the driver to start. The excavator's claw slammed down, and a Roman-columned portico split in two, dust billowing everywhere. I laughed and added, "This column stood for him 3 years ago. Ethan said when we married he would engrave our names on it. Now let me help that thing break first." 10 minutes later, the pool collapsed where he used to parade around. I stood in a bikini, pouring drinks for the investors. 10 minutes after that, the basement flooded, bottles of red wine shattering, glass raining down like confetti. I told the crew to pull the bottles that hadn't shattered yet, pop the corks, and pour them straight onto the rubble. The wine was a collector's item of Mr. Reynolds's, unfit for tribute, better flush down a toilet. The chat blew up again. "What a waste, give me a bottle." I laughed. "Fine, but on the body of that scumbag, I'll engrave something else." One stream peaked over 20 million views, gifts scrolling across the screen. Total donations passed 8 figures. I took a screenshot and, with one tap, transferred all proceeds to a fund supporting survivors of domestic violence, with the caption, "Demolish one scumbag's house, build 1,000 safe homes." Hot search blew up once more. Emily Shen demolishes house, donates 8-figure sum, Queen of Justice. I ended the live stream as the sun sank beneath the horizon, red like a rotten tomato. I raised my glass toward the wreckage, Ethan's golden cage that he'd given me. I returned it with a wasteland. The 7th drop of blood had landed. At 1 in the morning, I walked over broken porcelain in the debris and heard someone call my name. Turning around, it was Hannah Moore, carrying a black insulated food thermos. I watched the live stream. "Didn't demolishing that feel good?" she asked. "It was amazing, but I'm a bit hungry." She twisted off the lid. A steam plume rose. Inside was the spicy street hot pot from the old days, 2 extra portions of beef lung, no cilantro. I hesitated, and she ladled a generous helping into a bowl and handed it to me. Back then, Ethan sneered at street food and wouldn't let you eat it. "Consider this payback." I accepted, sat against a broken wall and took a bite. It burned so hot my eyes watered. Hannah tapped the disposable chopsticks against the rim with a soft, steady voice. "When we finish this, let's gather all the past and throw it in the trash." "Deal," I said, looking up at her flushed face in the firelight and smiling. "Also, take the spare skewers, sticking it to people still stings." We set our empty bowls down on the rubble, stood side by side, and walked out of the wreckage together. The night wind blew away the spice and the last traces of softness. By 10 o'clock that night, I returned to my apartment. The elevator doors opened, and a metallic scent of blood hit me. Ethan sat slumped in the hallway, his shirt soaked with sweat, dust, and blood making a grimy stain across it. In his hand, he clutched a bank card, snapped cleanly in 2. "You have nothing left, Ethan? Happy now?" I crouched down, used a key to gently lift his chin. "Stop pretending to be pitiful," I said coldly. "You still have one thing in your hand that's worth your life." His gaze glazed and puzzled. "What are you talking about?" he murmured. I raised my phone in front of his face. "You must have already received the anonymous DNA report, right? Maybe Lily leaving had something to do with you." On the screen was a new traffic police notice. At 6:30 p.m. tonight on the North Ring Expressway, an unregistered black sedan crashed into the guardrail. The driver, Lily, died at the scene. Ethan's pupils constricted. He choked, a gagging sound like an animal having its neck squeezed. I leaned close and whispered into his ear, "She's dead, and she didn't take her lover with her. What a pity." He gasped and tried to sputter a denial, but I curled my lip and said, "No, you're wrong. She's the one." I pulled out another phone and played Lily's final recording. "You ruined me. You let the internet tear me apart so Ethan dared not sponsor me. You destroyed everything I had, so don't expect to live in peace." Then came the screech of brakes, a slam, an explosion. Everything froze in a deadly hush. Ethan spat a mouthful of blood that splattered right onto my new shoes. I stepped back, frowning, my voice ice cold as I held up both my shoes, then opened the door, walked inside, and closed it. Through the peephole I watched him stagger to his feet, a tattered puppet, slam against the elevator door, and pound the button for the basement again and again. The elevator closed. The metal sound was crisp, maddeningly neat. I whispered, almost like a cold declaration, "The 8th drop of blood has arrived." The next morning, the police announced Ethan was suspected of instigating dangerous driving, of unlawful embezzlement, and of severe mental disorder. He had been taken to a compulsory treatment center on the city outskirts. I skimmed the notice, finished the last sip of my milk, and set the glass in the dishwasher. 8 of my assistants burst in and handed me a gold-embossed invitation. Reynolds Group would ring the NASDAQ bell remotely tonight at 8 p.m. at the city's highest rooftop club. I opened the shareholder list. Prominently shown was, Emily Shen holds 40% of shares. I changed into a red dress, sharp as a drawn blade. Yvonne took the black gavel from backstage. Crystal lights flashed like a galaxy. She offered me the gavel charm. "This time it's your turn, Miss Tong," she said. I shook my head, a small curve to my mouth. "No, we'll do it together." The countdown began. At 1958, I tilted my head toward the giant LED screen. The old Reynolds logo was wiped clean and replaced with the new emblem, 2 silver streaks slashing across the sky like lightning. No hammer fell. The bell's clear chime rang instead, and the hall erupted in cheers. I raised my glass toward the camera and toward the millions watching. "Girls, watch closely," I said. 15 years of youth can be fed to dogs or used to start fires. Flowers that bloom and flame are the ones with money to spend. Spend to your heart's delight. Spend until you're old and all that's left is kneeling tea time. At 2 in the morning, I returned to my apartment, opened the safe, and pulled out a cowhide paper bag that contained only one item, the first IOU Ethan had ever written me. The paper was yellowed and curled at the edges, but his handwriting was still clear. Ethan borrowed CNY 3,000 from Ms. Tong in June 2014 to start the company, promising that if the company listed, he would repay it with a wedding ring. I struck a match and burned it. The flame licked the words wedding ring until ash fell like a quiet snowfall. I slammed the safe shut. It was empty inside now. "Congratulations on your happily ever after," I whispered. A message popped up from an unknown number. "Miss Tong, good night." The corner of my mouth lifted. I replied, "Sleep well. Dream of the next tomb that needs cremation." After sending it, I switched off my phone, pulled the SIM, and threw it straight into the trash. Dawn was just breaking outside the window. I put on sunglasses, checked my reflection, and reapplied my lipstick once more. The woman in the mirror smiled like a blooming flower, but in her eyes the fire never went out. In short, a wholehearted gift finally given to the dogs. 15 years, the dream I turned to ash. I am reborn in flame, never looking back.